Picture the scenario with me. You just got in a fight with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Girls. You get home and you're really mad, and you need somewhere to channel your angry energy, so you punch a hole in the wall. And that helps you feel better for a few seconds. I don't know, do girls punch holes in the wall? They like scratch the wall or kick their high heel into it or something. So it helps you feel better for a little bit. You go to sleep, you wake up, you feel a little better, and then you realize you still have the hole in the wall. And so what are you going to do with that hole? Well, a friend of mine, he'll just put a poster up over it. The hole's still there, but it's covered. But today I'm going to demonstrate how to patch a hole in the wall. So, I wanted to actually knock a hole in the wall in the classroom, but I see how that could be problematic. So I brought in a piece of wall. I've been working with my dad. He's a handyman for about almost 4 years now, and so I've patched a lot of holes and done a lot of this kind of work. So there are several ways you can patch a hole. I had to do a lot of the work before, so it wouldn't take too long. The way I'm going to show you, you take pieces of wood, depending on how big the hole is, and you put screws in to hold it. There goes the tripod. Put holes for backing because you want the patch to stay in. If you don't put anything in, someone leans up against it and there's another hole in the wall. There's another way you can do it. I call it the Grandpa Ed patch because my grandpa taught it to me. Well, first of all, the way you cut drywall, you take a razor blade, you score it, crack it, and then cut the other side, and it's got paper on the other side if you've never seen drywall. But the way you do it is you score the patch, let's say the hole's smaller, and you rip it off, but you leave the paper on the front so it has wings that cover, so it will cover all over the side. But that way is not as easy. So this way goes in here. So like that. Alright. Then you gotta use tape. There's two different kinds of tapes. You have paper tape, which was the original kind of tape that you used to cover the cracks. This is a mesh tape. Get it off here. Kind of like a screen. And you cover up each crack. Kind of feels like I'm on one of those food channels. Wait a second. First, cure the patch. Screws. You want to make sure the screws are in all the way, because if they're sticking up, then your patch is going to look ugly. That should do it. Alright, so you want to have this tape on here so when the drywall mud dries, it doesn't crack, it doesn't, when it expands, it kind of gives it some flexibility. That's not long enough. Alright, got that on there. Now, yeah, drywall mud knife is what we call it. Knife's got all kinds of different sizes depending on what you're doing. They have ones that are shaped like a 90-degree angle for corners. Got some drywall mud, a joint compound, we just call it mud. Here. Let's bring this closer so we don't spoil. Alright. So, this patch is pretty small, so it's going to be easy with this knife. On a bigger patch, you would go just like on the sides, depending on the shape of it. And so I'm just going to cover it up right here. So you want to do, you're going to load it up like that, fill it, and each time I go over it, I take a little bit off. The first coat, well, sometimes it takes more than one coat, usually. You want to cover everything nicely. You don't want to see any of the tape, because if you can see through it, then it's going to look bad. Lots of mud up there. And you want to go pretty far around the patch, because obviously if you have mud on here, then it's going to be sticking out from the wall, and you don't want to see this big blob sticking out. So once you got it fairly smooth, like that's pretty good. And then once it dries, you come over it with a sanding block, which is a spongy thing with sandpaper on it, and you sand it up to make it nice. If the wall has texture, you can buy little spray cans of texture and finish it up with that, paint it up, and your wall's patched. So this can be really handy to know, like if you're moving out of an apartment and you got to fix walls for your landlord, save you money, and then if you get mad, you can just punch a hole in the wall, because it's not that hard to fix. There's more than one hole. So that's all I have for you. Thank you. Who wants it? Put your initials in.
All right, Morgan, I'm going to go ahead and start making my comments while you're finishing up so we can get it in this 10 minutes, try and speed it up a little bit. I think you rushed the introduction a little bit, but you had some nice humor in it that gets our attention. You've got a very clear statement of what your goal is. You need to give the presentation a little bit more structure. I know it's going chronological through the process, and so that part's clear, but I think if you break it down a little bit for us, give us 3 or 4 steps, for instance, that would be something that would be helpful for us to remember. On your body movements, you've got your back to the audience frequently, but I do think you compensate a little bit with your voice, so the paralanguage issues, I think, are pretty solid. Gestures, when you're not talking to us, sometimes you've got your arms crossed a little bit defensively or your hands in the pockets. It looks a little bit awkward. But when you're doing the repair and you're showing us things, you do seem to be very involved in that process. Your facial expressions are vivid. Like I said, the eye contact, because you do have to focus on what you're doing, sometimes it's a little inconsistent, but usually it goes along with what you're doing. I thought that you planned some things pretty well. Other things could have used a little bit extra planning. You had the problem with the tape, for instance. That was just a minor thing. You're not note dependent because you're just explaining something that you understand pretty well. It's easy to hear you. You seem engaged when you're talking. I thought you were pretty fluid even when you were working on the material. All right. I'm going to stop there.